You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Roughnecks podcast. I'm your host, Cole Nixon, and my goal of this podcast is to bring on leaders in the world of athletics, coaching, entrepreneurship, and just life in general to try and motivate us all to be better. We shouldn't strive to be millionaires in terms of money, but by the millions of lives that we can impact. If you want to be a guest or have a guest idea that you would like to hear from, then shoot me an email at roughneckspodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this episode. Then head over to our social media and give us a follow on Instagram at Roughnecks Podcast, Twitter at Roughnecks Pod C1, Facebook at Roughnecks Podcast. And then don't forget to subscribe to the Roughnecks YouTube channel as well. As always, be sure to grab the bull by the horns and take control of your life. Let's get into this week's episode. What's happening? Welcome to another episode of Roughnecks Podcast. I need to start off this episode by apologizing to all of you. I have been slacking big time on the podcast, and let me tell you, when the real world hit me after I graduated college, I watched all the free time that I used to have just straight up disappear. It was weird, that you always hear stories about it and what's going to happen, but man, it's crazy. I started work and then I went on vacation, and all of a sudden I was like, man, I missed an episode, almost missed another episode this week, but I couldn't let that happen. So I'm coming at you with just an episode of my own for this week. I don't have a guest. Sorry, I know you guys like the guests more. I do too personally. They make for better episodes. I was hoping to get a couple recorded last week, but it didn't work out with my schedule. I was on vacation and their schedules. We couldn't get it done. And it would have been hard there's 17 people in the house that we went, including myself, with 8 kids running around. It would have been a crazy time trying to find the quiet space to record an episode. I should have just done with my family, honestly, but I didn't get that done. But for this week's episode, I'm doing an episode where, for my loyal listeners who have been listening since day one and who know a lot, you guys are almost going to get a life update on me. And then for my YouTube listeners who may be new to this, it's going to be kind of an introduction and figuring out who I am and what the Roughnecks podcast is. So let's just start with who I am. I am Cole Nixon. I grew up in Pataska, Ohio. I'm 22 years old, by the way. I grew up in Pataska, Ohio, and spent my whole life there. Played sports throughout high school. I played football, played basketball all throughout high school. 3-year letterman in both, and then decided to go continue my my football career, that is. And I went and played at Ohio Wesleyan University for 4 years. I was 4-year letterman there. Didn't have quite a season last season, but still played 4 years. Thanks to COVID. COVID kind of took our season away, but I just graduated from there in the fall, or not fall, just graduated there in the spring this past May with a degree in business marketing and data analytics. Not even using that degree right now. Still kind of on the job search. I have a job. I put in fiberglass pools and do some hardscaping and some mulching on the side, but manual labor right after college, not necessarily what you want, but let me tell you, I love every bit of it. It's an awesome experience. I'm learning a lot, and the people I work for and with are just great people. So it's really cool to do, even though it might not be specifically your ideal job after college, after, spending 4 years and getting a degree, but maybe one day I'll use it. Maybe one day I won't. I honestly don't know. You never know what life has in store for you. So we'll just kind of see what happens. And so why did I start this podcast? A lot of you, I actually get asked this quite often, especially for people who don't really know me or just aren't familiar with me, but aren't familiar. And, so they're like, why do you have a podcast? And I'm like, honestly, it's kind of for fun. I'm not in it for the money, because trust me, I'm not making hardly any money. Yeah, I sell some shirts like this one right here, and I sell some wristbands and some koozies, and I sell some stuff on the side, but I'm not making money off this. So it's not really for that. And, I got to say though, this is not my first podcast. My first podcast was actually with Tex and Teddy, who started this podcast with me as well. It was called Fan Speak Sports, and it was started out as a blog, and then I had the social media, and then I started just continuing to grow, and it turned into a podcast, a YouTube channel. I just had so much on my plate because I was the one doing all the editing, doing all the social media, doing everything that I had to do. And no offense to Teddy, he from the jump, he just said that wasn't part of it, and I like to be in control of it, to be honest. So I mean, I kind of liked it, but then it kind of got to be too much, and we had such a narrow focus too. Like, we were just on sports, mainly football, because me and Teddy are both football guys. He's a coach now, and we both played football together. We were roommates, but we had a narrow focus, and then COVID came in and kind of took sports away from us. So then, it just kind of flopped. It just failed. Honestly, it failed. And let me tell you, like, that failure though, I'm very glad, because the Roughnecks podcast is it's quadruple better than the Fan Speak Sports podcast. The episodes are way better. Me and Teddy would just get on and ramble, and the only people that would want to listen to it are people who really knew me and Teddy to understand our humor and us going back and forth at each other all the time. That's just who we are. But and then going forward, we weren't going to do anything. Then one day, I think we moved into camp my senior year, which would have been his first year coaching, and we were hanging out, which we weren't supposed to do, but we were roommates, so it was going to happen no matter what. But we were hanging out, and I was like, "Hey, you want to start a podcast again?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And we'd kind of talked about it a few episodes ago. He was on another episode, and we talked about why we called it Roughnecks. And we don't really have a full reason for it, but we like it. He's Texas. We're both hardworking people, and we just kind of went with it, and just went with Roughnecks. And then it kind of evolved. Teddy had to step away. He had too much on his plate. He had coaching, working a job on top of coaching college athletics, and he just didn't have the time to make every episode that we were recording. So I just kind of took over it on my own. But why did I ask him that? Was because I was sitting in entrepreneurship class with Steve Flaherty, one of my professors. It was his first year teaching, I believe, and I was sitting there, and he'd have guest speakers on guest speakers come and speak to class. Most of the time it was through Zoom because of COVID and everything, but we'd be sitting there, and he'd bring these people in, like successful entrepreneurs and like people who have literally started a multi-million-dollar companies and stuff like that. And they'd always have such interesting stories and inspiring stories, that with so many life lessons, that I was like, I could do this. Like, I could share this with the world, not just with my class, or like these people can share this with more than just one class. So I was like, you know what, why don't I bring people on like that? Why don't I bring on athletes, coaches? I've had on D3 coaches. I've had on high school coaches, new high school coaches that are 24 years old, and athletes that have played at Ohio State, Purdue, and like all kinds of people who I played with in college, or people who have started their own business. We have Jermaine Fraser Phillips, who started Big Up Brew and stuff like that. Like, I bring on all these people because I want to share their stories. And, this is a sports minded podcast because it started with me and Teddy, Tex and Teddy, and we're both football guys. And, I'm somebody, once I kind of took over, I love sports. And I love the idea of entrepreneurship. I've come to love it after this past year of having that class, and just, kind of realizing that maybe one day I do want to start my own business. And, we kind of look at those things and how much they relate. So a lot of the people that I bring on this podcast are sports minded people as well, because, I just correlate with them better, and they have so many lessons, and they can show you how sports can correlate to life and how it helped them in starting their business, or, doing all this stuff. So that was the goal of this podcast, was to just bring on guests who are viewed as leaders and motivators in the world of coaching, sports, entrepreneurship, and just life in general. And, and then I went on. So we started that in September of 2020, and it went on through the year. And then come January 2021, I took it a new path, new direction a little bit. And it came from the Champions Manual, which is what we use at Ohio Wesleyan with head coach Tom Watts. And it kind of was stolen from Coach Jim Tressel from The Ohio State University, and now the president of Youngstown State. but he had what he called the winner's manual, and he even has a book on it. And I want to bring Jim Tressel on this podcast. I hope to be able to do that. I have some connections that I may be able to try and use. I'm going to try it. If not, you know what, whatever, but that'd be really cool to have him on. And what the winner's manual is, champion's manual, whatever you want to call it. I call it champion's manual because that's what we called it at Ohio Wesleyan. And it was like our Bible for football. Like, you did not show up to a meeting. You did not show up to film. You didn't show up to anything without that thing. Otherwise, you might be running the next day. So, but it, like, you flip through it and there's all these quotes and all this stuff. And there's so many topics that you can go through. And, I could spend 3 years probably having a topic every month on like what to talk about. But I picked 12 of them that I think kind of tell a story. So like January, we had inspiration. February, we had passion. March, we had mindset. April, we had commitment. May, we had adversity. In June, we have toughness this month. And, I've been slacking on the episodes, but toughness is a great topic. And I may do a couple bonus episodes next month or like 2 this next week or something, just to kind of catch back up with the toughness, because I want to continue to share that topic. It's a good topic. And, I kind of do it like a story behind them where, everything that we do in life starts with an inspiration. And then our passion for that thing grows. And then, we start to develop this mindset about it. And then we start to really commit to this passion, this inspiration, this passion that we were inspired by or whatever it is. And then, all of a sudden, boom, there's adversity. We always got adversity. Adversity never leaves. It's always with us, sadly. But that adversity is what makes you tough. And that's why I did a toughness right after adversity, because you need to be able to take that adversity and do something with it. So, that's the idea behind these. I have a new topic every month. It gets announced at the end of the month, either the 31st or 30th, whatever it is, or the 1st, usually in that area. It gets announced on social media. And so that's just kind of what this podcast is. I mean, if you guys want me to drop the topics, just let me know. And if you just want me to drop them and kind of just bring guests on, just kind of do some episodes like normal, still correlate those topics, but, just kind of be more free. But if that's what you guys want, let me know. I'll do what you guys want, because after all, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. So I do have some exciting guests that I am getting lined up. It's not exactly, like I said, I haven't been on top of my game with this podcast, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm trying to get back on track. I got some exciting guests. Have somebody hook me up with some NFL players. I this past week may have talked to a couple beach lifeguards to see if they'll come on. I got some TikTokers that are big time TikTokers. I'm working on some more EE apparel. I have had one EE apparel guest on with Hayden. He's the director of marketing for EE apparel, and I'm trying to get some more of them. Maybe one day I'll get Granger Smith. If you know me, as you can see right here, I got the hat on. I love EE. But I'd love that to happen. And, I'm working on getting some big time guests for you guys. I want this to be a very self-motivator podcast. I want to help you guys. I want to share these stories, share these lessons, because, there's a lot of us that always sit like my age, especially, where I just graduated college and I'm like, all right, now what do I do? What am I supposed to do? And, these people who have gone through it and experienced that, they can help push you in the right direction, help give you the navigation to where you need to go. So, but if you guys ever have any guest ideas, I don't really get a whole lot of guest ideas. People don't shoot me them that much. I ask some people sometimes, but if you guys have guest ideas, just shoot them to me. You can hit me with my email at roughneckspodcast@gmail.com. On this YouTube video, just put in the comments or whatever, or, just message me on social media, whatever it is. Just let me know if you guys have guest ideas, or if you want to be a guest. I'm open to guests. I'm always open to guests. I'm always willing to take more guests. But now it's time for Motivation Monday. It wouldn't be a normal podcast episode without Motivation Monday. So let's get into this week's Motivation Monday of the Roughnecks podcast. Motivation Monday, for those of you who don't know what it is the part in the episode where I usually give the guest, but this week it's just going to be me. And we give you a Roughnecks listeners a motivational, inspirational bump to set the tone for the week as they listen on their Monday morning. And for this week's Motivation Monday, I'm actually going to go back to an old episode and bring something up from Trevor Scott from episode 17 back in January, all the way back in January, which is crazy. It's June. It feels like just yesterday it was January, but it's something that I needed to hear. And it was complacency kills progress. Don't settle when you're comfortable. A lot of us do settle when we're comfortable. I did it with this podcast. I was comfortable. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh crap, I have an episode coming out tomorrow morning and I don't even have one recorded. So sorry, struggling with my speaking tonight, but that can correlate to a lot of things in life where we just get complacent. We think we're okay. We think we're good. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we haven't made progress in 2 months. We haven't made progress. We're not doing what we want to do. Kobe once said it, don't rest in the middle, rest in the end. A lot of us want to rest in the middle. That's not the time for rest. The time for rest is when we're done. So don't rest in the middle, rest in the end. And that's something that I needed to hear. I've honestly been a little lazy, getting behind. I feel like I've just kind of been getting by. I mean, yes, I'm working all the time. I'm doing all these side jobs. I'm trying to work my butt off so that I'm able to financially be okay. But, I'm struggling. I'm letting the little things slide, like keeping up with my reading that I do. I like to read all the time. I try to read 10 pages a day, but I've been struggling with that. I've been slacking on that, working out. Oh, good Lord. I need to get back in the gym ASAP. Or this podcast. So don't settle. Don't get complacent. Keep grinding and rest at the end, not in the middle. And with that, that's a wrap on this short episode. I know it's a short one. Things should be back to normal next week, so stay tuned. For my YouTube listeners or any of the new listeners that are listening, we have a slogan that we live by on this podcast, and it's called "Grab the bull by the horns." I have it on these wristbands. I wear them every day to remind myself. If you want some, hit me up. I will send you some. They are $2.50 a piece. I still have plenty left to sell. But the thing behind the grab the bull by the horns, that bull is like life, and we are the bull riders. We're the ones riding our life. We're the ones riding that roller coaster, riding that bull, whatever you want to say. But that bull's going to knock you down. There's that adversity again. That bull's going to knock you down. But what are you going to do? Are you just going to let that bull walk all over you, to trample you to death? Or are you going to get up, grab by the... Man, I really am struggling tonight, aren't I? Or are you going to get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your own life? Till next week, Roughnecks out. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Roughnecks podcast. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and then also subscribe to the Roughnecks YouTube channel. If you want to be a guest or have a guest that you would like to hear from, then shoot me an email at roughneckspodcast@gmail.com or message me on social media on Instagram at roughneckspodcast or Twitter at roughneckspod, C1, or Facebook at roughneckspodcast. Life is hard and will knock you down like a bull. Don't lay there and let it run you over. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Till next week, Roughnecks out.